Welcome to Strange History, where history's greatest mysteries come alive. From hidden secrets to ancient enigmas, we uncover the stories they don't teach in textbooks. If you love diving into the unknown, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get into the video. The monument that defies time. For thousands of years, the Great Sphinx of Giza has gazed silently eastward, its weathered face turned toward the rising sun. It is one of the most mysterious monuments on Earth, part lion, part human, and entirely inexplicable. Even now, standing in the shadow of the Great Pyramids, it evokes a haunting sense of awe. Who carved it? When was it made? And, perhaps most importantly, why? Mainstream Egyptology has long insisted that the Sphinx was built around 2500 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, the supposed builder of the Second Pyramid of Giza. But in recent decades, a growing number of researchers, geologists, and independent historians have begun to challenge this timeline. They claim that the Sphinx is far older, perhaps 10,000 years older, and that the evidence for this lies not in myth, but in the very stones themselves. The key clue? Water erosion, deep, vertical fissures and undulating grooves carved into the limestone enclosure that surrounds the Sphinx. These marks, according to some scientists, could only have been created by sustained rainfall, the kind Egypt hasn't seen since the end of the last ice age. If true, this single fact could rewrite everything we know about human history. The official story, a monument for a pharaoh. In every schoolbook, every museum, and every tourist guide, the narrative remains consistent: the Sphinx was built around 2500 BCE by Pharaoh Khafra, son of Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid. The Sphinx's face, Egyptologists say, was carved in Khafra's likeness, symbolizing the pharaoh's divine connection with the sun god Ra. But this official version has always been built on assumption, not evidence. There are no inscriptions anywhere on or near the Sphinx that mention Khafra. No ancient records describe its construction. No papyrus scrolls detail its purpose. The Sphinx simply appears, already ancient, already weathered, by the time of Egypt's earliest known writings. Even in the Old Kingdom texts, the Sphinx is referred to as Sheps's Ankh, the living image. By the time the Egyptians were writing their histories, the monument was already treated as a relic from a forgotten age. So where did it really come from? A mystery older than the pyramids. The Great Sphinx sits in a shallow pit carved directly into the bedrock of the Giza Plateau. Surrounding it are the colossal pyramids of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure, structures already mysterious in their own right. Yet, despite the grandeur of these tombs, the Sphinx feels different. Its body is weathered far more deeply than the nearby temples or pyramid casing stones. The erosion is not merely superficial, it penetrates deep into the rock, giving the impression of immense age. In 1991, a geologist named Dr. Robert Schoch, a professor from Boston University, examined the site and made a shocking claim. He concluded that the weathering patterns on the Sphinx's body and enclosure were not caused by wind or sand, as Egyptologists had long claimed, but by heavy and prolonged rainfall. This was groundbreaking because Egypt's climate has been hyperarid for the last 5,000 years. For such rain-induced erosion to occur, the monument would have had to stand exposed to intense precipitation for centuries, conditions that last existed in Egypt between 700 and 10,000 BCE. That means the Sphinx may predate not only the pyramids, but the entire Egyptian civilization itself. The geological evidence. Dr. Schoch's analysis began with simple observation. The vertical fissures and rounded undulations carved into the limestone enclosure of the Sphinx are strikingly different from the horizontal erosion seen on other ancient structures in Egypt. Wind erosion, which dominates the desert environment, tends to produce sharp edges and horizontal striations. Rainwater, by contrast, flows downward, cutting deep vertical channels as it runs off surfaces. Schoch took geological samples from the site and compared the weathering profiles to known limestone formations exposed to rainfall in other parts of the world. The match was unmistakable. The patterns on the Sphinx enclosure matched those caused by long-term water exposure, not desert wind. This led Schoch to propose a radical hypothesis: the original core of the Sphinx, possibly even the entire structure, was carved at the end of the last ice age, when the Giza Plateau was a greener, wetter region, nourished by seasonal monsoons and heavy rains. To the academic establishment, the claim was heresy. The debate that shook Egyptology. When Dr. Schoch presented his findings at the Geological Society of America in 1992, he was met with a storm of controversy. Egyptologists, led by Dr. Zahi Hawass, the then director of antiquities, dismissed the claims as nonsense. They argued that Egyptian civilization simply did not exist that far back in time. There is no way, Hawass said, that any people capable of building the Sphinx existed before 2500 BCE. But Schoch's data was difficult to refute. He wasn't an Egyptologist, he was a geologist, and his expertise was in rock weathering, not dynastic timelines. His conclusions were based on the stone itself, not the traditions written millennia later. He was soon joined by John Anthony West, an independent researcher who had long suspected that Egypt's true antiquity had been drastically underestimated. Together, they pushed forward what became known as the water erosion hypothesis. This theory didn't just question the age of the Sphinx, it threatened to unravel the entire timeline of ancient civilization. The head that doesn't fit. Another curious feature adds weight to the theory of a much older origin, the head of the Sphinx. When compared to the body, the head appears disproportionately small. Some researchers, including Schoch and West, believe that the Sphinx's head was recarved in antiquity, possibly during the reign of Khafra or another pharaoh. If the original monument was a lion, or perhaps a different face altogether, it could explain why the head's proportions seem inconsistent with the body. Erosion patterns also suggest that the head is less weathered than the body, indicating it was carved much later. This would mean the Sphinx predates the pharaohs, and that the Egyptians merely inherited and modified it, a theory not unlike how later civilizations repurposed ancient temples and ruins across the world. Could it be that the Sphinx originally bore the face of a lion, symbolizing the age of Leo, a zodiac era corresponding roughly to 10,500 BCE? The pieces, however speculative, begin to align. The lost civilization hypothesis. If the Sphinx was built at the end of the Ice Age, the question becomes, who were its builders? In recent years, evidence has emerged of advanced prehistoric sites that push back humanity's timeline of civilization. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dated to around 9600 BCE, revealed megalithic architecture built thousands of years before the invention of writing. Its intricate carvings, astronomical alignments, and monumental stone pillars prove that complex societies existed far earlier than previously thought. Could the same culture, or one connected to it, have reached Egypt and left behind the Sphinx? The possibility is startling but not implausible. Many ancient flood myths, from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, speak of a great cataclysm that destroyed a high civilization long before recorded history. Plato's story of Atlantis, said to have perished around 9600 BCE, aligns eerily with the same timeline. A guardian of hidden knowledge. Throughout Egyptian history, the Sphinx has been seen as a guardian, a sentinel that protects sacred knowledge. The Greeks later called it Sphinx, meaning to bind, referring to riddles and secrets. Beneath the Sphinx's paws, ancient texts speak of a chamber, the so-called Hall of Records, where the wisdom of a forgotten civilization was said to be hidden. In 1993, ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted by the team of Dr. Thomas DeBecke and Dr. Schoch detected anomalous cavities beneath the Sphinx's enclosure. The scan suggested the presence of chambers or tunnels under the monument, rectangular spaces that did not match any known excavation or natural formation. The Egyptian authorities, however, have largely restricted exploration beneath the Sphinx, fueling speculation about what might lie below. Could the Sphinx truly be guarding an ancient library, as legend claims? And if so, whose records would they be, or the pharaohs or the architects of the first time? A symbol written in stone. Standing before the Sphinx today, one cannot escape the sense of deep time embedded in its form. The monument's eroded flanks seem to whisper of a world long gone, a world of lush green fields, heavy rains, and a sky filled with stars that once guided lost civilizations. Every line, every fissure, and every scar tells a story written not in ink, but in stone. perhaps the true mystery of the Sphinx is not merely when it was made, but what it remembers. For if this monument indeed bears the mark of water from an age before history, then the story of human civilization is far older and far stranger than we have ever imagined. The Sphinx and the sky. The Great Sphinx of Giza faces directly east, its gaze eternally fixed upon the horizon where the sun rises each morning. This alignment is not random. In fact, few features of ancient Egyptian monuments ever were. To the Egyptians, the sky was not merely a canopy of stars but a living map of the divine. The heavens mirrored the earth, and every movement of the stars reflected the will of the gods. When the first light of dawn touches the Sphinx's face, it illuminates the monument in a way that seems deliberate, engineered. To the ancients, the rising sun symbolized rebirth, resurrection, and eternal life. Thus, the Sphinx, half man, half lion, became the earthly guardian of that celestial cycle, watching over the daily death and rebirth of the sun god Ra. But what if this alignment wasn't meant for the Egypt of Khafra's time? What if it pointed to a much older celestial event, one that occurred long before the pyramids were built? The Age of Leo. In astrology, humanity's timeline is divided into great ages defined by the precession of the equinoxes, a slow wobble in Earth's rotation that shifts the position of the Sun against the background of constellations over a 25,920-year cycle. Each astrological age lasts roughly 2,160 years. Today, the Sun rises in Pisces at the spring equinox, soon to shift into Aquarius, the much-heralded age of Aquarius. But if we trace the cycle backward, we find that around 10,500 BCE, the spring equinox sunrise occurred in the constellation Leo, the Lion. If the Sphinx was indeed built in that era, its lion-shaped body facing the eastern horizon would have been a perfect reflection of the skies. It would be both symbol and mirror, a monument to the heavens carved into the earth. This is the foundation of the Orion-Leo correlation theory, first proposed by independent researcher Robert Bauval and later expanded upon in the groundbreaking book The Message of the Sphinx, 1996, co-authored with Graham Hancock. According to their research, the layout of the Giza pyramids mirrors the three stars of Orion's belt, while the Sphinx, aligned to the east, corresponds to Leo on the horizon. Together, they form a celestial map of the sky as it appeared around 10,500 BCE, the very time period suggested by the water erosion evidence. Could this be coincidence? Or are these monuments deliberate markers of a forgotten epoch? A snapshot in stone. Let's imagine standing on the Giza Plateau in 10,500 BCE. The world is emerging from the grip of the last ice age. Vast ice sheets still cling to the northern continents, but the climate is changing, warming rapidly. The Nile Valley is fertile, its banks overflowing with vegetation, wildlife, and early human settlements. At dawn on the spring equinox, the rising sun appears precisely between the paws of the Sphinx. Above it, in the sky, shines Leo, the Lion constellation. To the south, Orion's belt hangs low, pointing directly toward the pyramid's future positions. If the builders of the Sphinx and the pyramids intended to freeze this moment in time, to preserve a message written in both stone and starlight, then Giza becomes far more than a necropolis. It becomes a cosmic clock, encoding the date 10,500 BCE with astonishing precision. In this scenario, the Sphinx is not merely a guardian of tombs, it is a marker of time, a monument to the rebirth of civilization itself after a cataclysmic global event. The Cataclysm Hypothesis. Many ancient traditions describe a world that was nearly destroyed by water, a great flood that swept across the earth. From the biblical deluge of Noah to the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh and the Atlantean flood described by Plato, the story repeats across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Could these myths recall a real event, perhaps the sudden end of the Ice Age, when melting glacier caused sea levels to rise by over 120 meters worldwide? Around 10,800 BCE, a massive climatic shift known as the Younger Dryas event plunged the planet back into near-glacial conditions after a period of warming. Some scientists now believe this was triggered by the impact of a fragmented comet or asteroid that struck Earth's northern hemisphere. If this catastrophe devastated early human settlements, erasing advanced coastal cultures, then the Sphinx might have been built as a memorial, a warning left by survivors of that lost world. The lion-faced monument, staring into the age of Leo, could signify the dawn after destruction, the rebirth of humanity under the returning sun. The astronomers of antiquity. Mainstream archaeology argues that no civilization capable of such astronomical precision existed 12,000 years ago. Yet mounting evidence from sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey challenges that assumption. Göbekli Tepe, built around 9600 BCE, contained circular enclosures and T-shaped megaliths aligned to celestial bodies. Some of its carvings appear to depict constellations, while others may record a comet impact, the very event hypothesized to have triggered the Younger Dryas. If the people of Göbekli Tepe possess such knowledge, it is not unreasonable to imagine a sister culture to the southwest, perhaps in North Africa, also gazing at the heavens and marking their understanding in stone. Were these ancient astronomers the same people who built the Sphinx? The hidden mathematics of Giza. The Giza Plateau has long been suspected of containing advanced geometry encoded in its design. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north within a fraction of a degree, a level of accuracy difficult to achieve even today without advanced instruments. When we examine the relationship between the pyramids and the Sphinx, more mysteries appear. The distance between the Sphinx and the center of the Great Pyramid aligns closely with solar and stellar declinations during specific epochs. The pyramid's slope angle of 51°51' also encodes the ratio of pi, and the golden number phi, both sacred mathematical constants found throughout nature. The builders, whoever they were, understood astronomy, geometry, and engineering at a level seemingly beyond their supposed time. If the Sphinx truly predates the pyramids, it may have served as the anchor point, the celestial zero mark, from which the entire complex was later constructed. The pharaohs may have built their tombs around an already ancient, sacred landmark. In that sense, Khafra and his successors were not the creators of Giza, but the inheritors of its mystery. The forgotten builders. Who, then, were these first-time builders described in Egyptian legend, the architects of Zep-Tepi? Ancient records offer tantalizing hints. The pyramid texts, some of Egypt's oldest writings, refer to a group called the followers of Horus, divine beings who ruled before the pharaohs. They were said to have come from the island of the gods, which sank beneath the waves. If we strip away the mythic language, could these followers of Horus have been survivors from a pre-Diluvian culture, refugees from a destroyed homeland, perhaps the very Atlantis described by Plato? Plato claimed that Atlantis fell around 9600 BCE, the same date as the end of the Ice Age and the possible construction of the Sphinx. He also said the Atlanteans were master engineers, astronomers, and temple builders. If there is even a grain of truth in his story, then the Sphinx may stand as the last surviving monument of that world, a silent witness to its fall. The celestial blueprint. The entire Giza complex appears to follow a deliberate astronomical plan. When viewed from above, the pyramids align not only with Orion's belt, but also correspond to key points in the Milky Way's curve as it crosses the horizon. In the 10,500 BCE sky, the Milky Way mirrored the Nile River, both running from south to north, both representing the cosmic flow of life. The Sphinx, sitting at the eastern edge of this arrangement, seems to act as the gateway, the point where heaven meets earth. Such precision suggests not mere superstition, but scientific observation. Whoever designed Giza had an intimate understanding of the precession of the equinoxes, the geometry of Earth, and the patterns of the heavens. That knowledge, according to conventional archaeology, shouldn't have existed for another 8,000 years. The keeper of secrets. Throughout history, explorers and mystics have believed that the Sphinx conceals more than symbolic meaning, it hides physical secrets beneath its pores. Ancient texts like the Inventory Stele, found near Giza, claim that the Sphinx was discovered, not built, by the early pharaohs, and that it guarded entrances to the underworld, beneath its foundation. In 1993, ground-penetrating radar confirmed the presence of chamber-like anomalies beneath the monument. Although Egyptian authorities have denied the existence of any Hall of Records, the mystery remains unsolved. Some say the ancients stored their sacred knowledge there, mathematics, astronomy, and spiritual wisdom from before the flood, awaiting a time when humanity would once again be ready to receive it. Whether myth or truth, that legend continues to draw explorers to the Sphinx's feet, searching for the hidden library of a forgotten world. The symbol of the ages. Every ancient culture had a lion, a symbol of power, divinity, and guardianship. From the lions of Mesopotamia to the Lamassu of Assyria and the winged lions of Greece, this archetype appears again and again. The Sphinx may be the oldest and most profound of them all, a primordial fusion of man and beast, spirit and matter, heaven and earth. Its gaze is both regal and mournful, as if it remembers something humanity has forgotten. If it truly dates to a time when the constellation of Leo rose at dawn over Giza, then it is not just a monument, it is a time capsule carved in stone, marking the rebirth of the world after cataclysm. The water damage on its body, the astronomical precision of its alignment, and the myths surrounding its creation all converge on one breathtaking conclusion. The Sphinx may be the oldest surviving structure on Earth, a message from an age before history began. The mystery beneath the monument. The Sphinx has stood silently for thousands of years, half buried in sand for much of that time. Its head, weathered yet proud, rose above the dunes like a sentinel watching over the plateau, while its massive body lay concealed beneath the shifting desert. Generations of Egyptians, from pharaohs to modern archaeologists, have uncovered and reburied it many times, as if the sands themselves were determined to guard its secrets. But among all the enigmas surrounding the Sphinx, its age, its builders, its purpose, none has provoked more speculation than what lies beneath it. Beneath that limestone colossus, hidden deep in the bedrock of Giza, are said to be chambers and tunnels, forgotten vaults of ancient knowledge that could rewrite human history. The dream stele, a cryptic message from the past. Between the paws of the Sphinx stands a weathered granite slab known as the Dream Stele, erected around 1400 BCE by Pharaoh Thutmose IV. Its inscription, though partially eroded, tells a curious story. According to the text, the young Thutmose fell asleep in the shadow of the Sphinx one day while hunting in the desert. In his dream, the great creature spoke to him, promising that if Thutmose would clear away the sand burying its body, he would be rewarded with the crown of Egypt. The prince obeyed, excavated the monument, and eventually became pharaoh. On the surface, it is a tale of divine favor. Yet hidden between the lines lies something deeper. The stele describes the Sphinx not as a monument built by Thutmose, or even by Khafra, but as something ancient, already long buried, waiting to be rediscovered. The text refers to the Sphinx as the Lord of the Place of Beginnings, a title suggesting its origins reach back to the dawn of time, the mythical Zep Tepi, the first time. If this is true, then Thutmose did not build the Sphinx, he unearthed it. This is one of the earliest recorded hints that the monument predates the pharaohs themselves. Rumors of a hidden chamber. For centuries, travelers and mystics have whispered of secret rooms beneath the Sphinx. In ancient times, priests of Heliopolis believed that the god Thoth, patron of wisdom and writing, had hidden sacred scrolls beneath a lion-shaped monument to preserve the knowledge of a lost age. During the Greco-Roman period, writers like Pliny the Elder and Strabo mentioned underground passages at Giza leading to vaults of the gods. Some said the Sphinx guarded a gateway to the underworld, a symbolic entrance to the realm of the dead, or perhaps a literal one leading to hidden chambers. In the late 20th century, technology brought new eyes to these old legends. The 1990s rediscovery. In 1991, a team led by John Anthony West, the Egyptologist who had challenged the orthodox dating of the Sphinx, returned to Giza with a new goal: to search for hidden structures below the surface. Partnering with geophysicist Thomas DeBecke and geologist Robert Schoch, West used ground-penetrating radar (GPR) and seismic surveys to probe the bedrock beneath the Sphinx. The results were astonishing. Their instruments detected anomalies, rectangular voids and channels, directly beneath the monument's paws and extending under its body. One cavity, roughly 9 meters by 12, appeared to be perfectly symmetrical, unlike natural fissures in the limestone. Another anomaly was detected beneath the Sphinx's left paw, precisely where the ancient texts claimed Thoth's Hall of Records was hidden. These findings ignited a storm of controversy. The Hall of Records legend. The concept of a Hall of Records originates not only from Egyptian lore but also from more modern esoteric traditions. In the early 20th century, American clairvoyant Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, gave a series of trance readings that mentioned the Sphinx. Casey claimed that the monument was built around 10,500 BCE by survivors of Atlantis and that beneath it lay a sealed library containing the history of that lost civilization, the Hall of Records. He predicted that this chamber would one day be discovered between the Sphinx's paws before the end of the 20th century, revealing the truth about humanity's forgotten past. When the radar results surfaced in the 1990s, many believed Casey's prophecy was coming true. The official response. The Egyptian Antiquities Organization, now the Supreme Council of Antiquities, reacted swiftly and defensively. Dr. Zahi Hawass, the powerful head of the council at the time, dismissed the findings as nonsense and denied permission for any excavation beneath the Sphinx. Publicly, Hawass argued that the anomalies were natural fissures in the rock, and that there was nothing hidden beneath the monument. But privately, even some within the council admitted that the data raised legitimate questions. In interviews years later, Hawass acknowledged that small cavities exist under the Sphinx but insisted they were not man-made. To this day, no official excavation of the voids has been permitted. Why such resistance? Why not simply investigate and end the debate once and for all? Some researchers suggest that Egyptian authorities fear losing control of the narrative of their national heritage. If the Sphinx were proven to predate the earliest dynasties, it would overturn more than a century of established history. Others whisper of political pressure, secrecy, and even hidden discoveries that have never been made public. The Lost Tunnels of Giza. Legends of subterranean passages beneath the plateau go far beyond the Sphinx. In the 1930s, British explorer Hamilton M. Wright reported discovering an ancient tunnel beneath the Great Pyramid that extended toward the Sphinx. Later accounts by Egyptian archaeologists hinted at vast underground networks connecting temples and shafts across Giza. In 1978, a team from the University of Cairo supposedly rediscovered several sealed passages while repairing the Sphinx enclosure. The Egyptian media briefly reported strange shafts filled with sand and debris, but then the story vanished, and access to the area was restricted. In 1995, Egyptian researchers Dr. Abdel Hakim Awayan and Bettis Schultz claimed to have entered one of these tunnels, finding ancient stonework and rooms carved deep beneath the plateau. No official report ever followed. Whether these accounts are exaggerated, misunderstood, or deliberately suppressed, they all point to one tantalizing possibility, that Giza's monuments are only the visible surface of a much larger complex buried below. The geological evidence. If the Sphinx and its enclosure were carved thousands of years before Khafra's reign, then the chambers beneath would be just as old, or older. Geological surveys show that the limestone bedrock beneath the Sphinx is heavily fractured, possibly by seismic activity or subsidence. Yet the supposed chambers detected by radar appear geometric, rectangular and smooth-sided, suggesting artificial construction. Some scientists argue that water erosion during the post-glacial floods could have carved natural cavities. Others counter that these voids are too regular, too symmetrical, to be accidental. If they are man-made, they may have been dug during a period when the bedrock was still soft and exposed, before millennia of desert desiccation hardened it. That would place their creation in the same era as the Sphinx's carving, potentially around 10,000 BCE. Symbolism of the underworld. In Egyptian cosmology, the underworld, known as Duat, was not simply a place of death, but a realm of transformation, where souls were judged and reborn. The journey through Duat was mapped in sacred texts like the Book of Gates and Book of the Dead, which describe the soul passing through 12 regions, each guarded by gates, serpents, and lions. The lion was a powerful symbol of protection at the thresholds of the underworld. In temple architecture, lion statues often flanked entrances or sacred pathways. The Sphinx, colossal and eternal, could represent the ultimate guardian of Duat, guarding not just a mythic realm, but a real one, a network of subterranean chambers holding the secrets of resurrection. In this sense, the chambers beneath the Sphinx might not be mere storage rooms, but symbolic tombs of knowledge, portals to the divine, encoded in stone. Modern explorations and suppression. In the early 2000s, independent researchers attempted to re-examine the Sphinx using updated technology. Satellite imaging, microgravity mapping, and 3D sonar scans were proposed by various teams. Each time, permission was denied. In 2008, French engineer Jean-Louis Bouchat claimed to have evidence of a sealed doorway beneath the Sphinx's right paw, based on thermal imaging data. His findings suggested a cavity of uniform shape, possibly containing artifacts. Yet the Egyptian authorities again dismissed the claim, calling it pseudo-archaeology. However, in 2015, a thermal anomaly was confirmed by the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities itself. Infrared scans conducted by Cairo University and the French Institute for Heritage Innovation detected hot spots along the lower eastern wall of the Sphinx, suggesting the presence of voids or differing materials beneath the surface. Despite this confirmation, excavation has still not been approved. Why hide the truth? Why such secrecy over what might be a simple geological cavity? Some believe the reason lies in control over history, tourism, and national identity. Admitting that Egypt's greatest monument could predate Egyptian civilization itself would challenge not only archaeology but also cultural pride. Others suspect that discoveries may have already been made, artifacts or inscriptions that could reveal uncomfortable truths about the origins of human civilization. Whatever the reason, the Sphinx continues to keep its silence. The symbolic implication. Even if no physical hall of records exists, the symbolism remains powerful. Beneath the Sphinx's calm face lies a metaphor for humanity itself, our forgotten origins buried beneath layers of time, waiting to be rediscovered. Whether the voids beneath are man-made or natural, they compel us to ask deeper questions. Who built this monument? What knowledge did they possess? And why did they want it to endure for eternity? The Sphinx, it seems, guards not only stone chambers but truths humanity is not yet ready to confront. The battle lines are drawn. By the mid-1990s, the debate surrounding the Sphinx had become one of the most divisive in the history of archaeology. On one side stood the orthodox Egyptologists, confident in their long-held belief that the Great Sphinx was built during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra, around 2500 BCE. On the other were a growing number of independent researchers, scientists, and historians who believed the monument was far older, possibly a relic of a forgotten civilization predating Egypt itself. At the center of this storm stood John Anthony West and Dr. Robert Schoch, the geologist from Boston University whose analysis had ignited the controversy. Their findings, published in the early 1990s, suggested that the Sphinx's body showed unmistakable signs of water erosion, deep vertical fissures and rounded contours caused by long-term rainfall. This evidence contradicted everything Egyptologists had claimed for over a century. How could a monument supposedly built in the middle of a desert show signs of thousands of years of exposure to heavy rain, unless it had been carved during a time when Egypt's climate was entirely different? The only period in which such rainfall existed was before 7000 BCE, thousands of years before the first known pharaoh even existed. Science versus tradition. When Schoch presented his geological findings at the Geological Society of America in 1992, the reaction was explosive. Many geologists found his argument persuasive. The weathering on the Sphinx's body did not match that seen on other monuments of the Old Kingdom, which had been carved from the same type of limestone. Instead, it resembled natural erosion caused by prolonged water flow, the kind that occurs during centuries of rainfall, not mere decades of wind and sand. But to Egyptologists, these claims were heresy. For over a century, they had built a meticulous timeline of Egyptian history based on inscriptions, king lists, and dynastic artifacts. To move the Sphinx's creation back thousands of years would collapse that timeline entirely, forcing historians to admit that an advanced civilization existed long before the dawn of Egypt. Dr. Zahi Horace, then director of the Giza Plateau, responded to Schoch's claims with fury. "This is nonsense," he declared in multiple interviews. "There is no mystery about the Sphinx. We know who built it, when, and why." But critics noticed that his defense was rooted not in geological evidence, but in historical tradition, in the stories archaeologists had told for decades. As Schoch later wrote, it was as though we were speaking two different languages. I was talking about rocks and rain, they were talking about kings and dynasties. The evidence mounts. Over the following years, Schoch and West refined their analysis. They compared the erosion on the Sphinx to the layers of the plateau itself, noting how the fissures cut deeply into the softer limestone layers but left the harder strata intact, just as rainfall would. They also observed that the Sphinx enclosure, the trench surrounding the monument, displayed the same patterns of rounded, wave-like weathering. This suggested that the entire area had once been exposed to prolonged water runoff, perhaps during a period of heavy monsoons or even a catastrophic flood. Satellite studies of the Sahara supported this view. During the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BCE, North Africa was not a desert but a green, fertile region filled with rivers, lakes, and rainfall. The Green Sahara era provided precisely the conditions that could have shaped the Sphinx's erosion profile. If the monument existed back then, its builders lived in a completely different world, one where the Nile Valley was lush, and the stars in the sky were positioned differently. The astronomical alignment theory. This is where another researcher, Robert Bauval, entered the scene. Bauval was not a geologist but an engineer and amateur astronomer who, in the early 1990s, proposed a theory that changed the way we look at Giza forever. Bauval discovered that the three pyramids of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure were aligned in the same pattern as the three stars of Orion's belt. Moreover, when the stars' positions were projected backward using astronomical software, they perfectly matched the pyramid layout as they would have appeared around 10,500 BCE, the same era indicated by the Sphinx's water erosion. Even more astonishingly, the Sphinx itself faces directly east, gazing toward the rising sun during the spring equinox. Around 10,500 BCE, the constellation Leo rose on the horizon at dawn, directly in front of the Sphinx's gaze. A lion facing the constellation of Leo, during a time of great rains and fertile lands. Coincidence, or cosmic design? If Bauval's alignment theory was correct, the Sphinx and the pyramids formed part of an ancient celestial map, built not by the pharaohs, but by an earlier culture with a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and mathematics. Together, Schoch's geological data and Bauval's astronomical model painted a shocking picture. The Giza complex was not a creation of the Fourth Dynasty, it was a legacy from a forgotten world. The academic backlash. Mainstream Egyptologists reacted with disbelief and anger. To them, the idea that an advanced civilization existed before Egypt was impossible. No tools, artifacts, or written records from such an era had ever been found, and without those, they argued, the theory was mere fantasy. Dr. Mark Lehner, one of the leading Egyptologists at Giza, dismissed the geological arguments, claiming that the erosion could have been caused by wind, sand, and fluctuations in humidity. But Schoch countered that wind erosion leaves horizontal striations, not the vertical, rounded channels seen on the Sphinx's body. The debate grew so heated that academic journals refused to publish further papers on the topic, labeling it too speculative. Yet the evidence itself did not go away. Independent researchers, amateur historians, and curious scientists continued to revisit the Sphinx, collecting new data that kept pointing to one conclusion: the monument's weathering patterns did not fit its supposed age. And so, a silent war began, not between nations, but between knowledge and authority. The politics of history. Why such hostility? Why such an unwillingness to even test the hypothesis further? The answer, many believe, lies in the politics of archaeology. Egypt's historical narrative is a source of immense national pride, central to its identity and tourism industry. The idea that the country's most iconic monument was built not by Egyptians but by an unknown, prehistoric people is politically explosive. Furthermore, Egyptology as a discipline has been built on a strict chronological framework. Every discovery, from the pyramids to the Valley of the Kings, is categorized according to the established dynastic timeline. If the Sphinx were proven to be thousands of years older, that entire framework would have to be rebuilt, and centuries of academic authority would crumble overnight. For this reason, some suggest that the fierce defense of the orthodox timeline is less about science and more about self-preservation. The voice of the stones. When modern archaeologists are forbidden to dig beneath the Sphinx, they turn instead to non-invasive methods. Using seismic tomography, microgravity sensors, and 3D laser scanning, they can peer into the ground without breaking a single rock. These methods continue to reveal anomalies, areas beneath the Sphinx enclosure that behave differently from the surrounding bedrock, as if hollow or filled with different materials. Some researchers believe these are man-made chambers, others think they are natural cavities. But even natural formations can hold significance. If humans once lived at Giza during the wet period of 10,000 BCE, they may have carved or adapted natural caves into temples or tombs. Over time, as the climate changed and sand reclaimed the land, these early structures could have been buried, leaving only the upper portion visible, the Sphinx's head. It is possible that the head itself was recarved in later ages, perhaps by the pharaohs, to resemble their own features, explaining its disproportionate size compared to the body. This would mean that the core structure of the Sphinx is ancient, but its face is a later modification, a literal rewriting of history in stone. Voices of the opposition. Not all Egyptologists dismiss the possibility of pre-dynastic monuments. A few, cautiously, have begun to acknowledge that ancient Egypt may have inherited more than previously believed. Dr. Fakhri Hassan, an archaeologist at University College London, once stated that there may have been a continuity of culture older than we currently recognize. Dr. Colin Reeder, a British geologist, went further, suggesting that the Sphinx could date to around 7000 BCE, still thousands of years earlier than Khafra's reign. These are small concessions, but they mark the beginning of a shift, a crack in the wall of academic certainty. The forbidden timeline. If the Sphinx truly dates to 10,000 BCE, then the implications are staggering. That era corresponds with the end of the last ice age, a period of massive environmental upheaval and rising sea levels. Civilizations across the globe, from Göbekli Tepe in Turkey to the submerged ruins off India's coast, show signs of sudden disappearance or transformation around the same time. Could the Sphinx belong to that same lost world? If so, then Egypt's monumental architecture is not the dawn of civilization, it is the echo of something far older, something humanity barely remembers. The pyramids and temples of the dynastic Egyptians may not have been original creations but attempts to replicate or honor the designs of a forgotten past. The Sphinx, standing silent and eroded by rains long ceased, may be the only surviving witness to that earlier epoch. For thousands of years, the Great Sphinx of Giza has been Egypt's most enduring symbol, a monument so ancient that even the pharaohs who ruled in its shadow seemed uncertain of its true origins. Yet, what if the reason for their silence wasn't forgetfulness, but rather, that the Sphinx predated even the dynasties themselves? In this part, we explore the possibility that the Sphinx was constructed by an advanced civilization long before Egypt's known history, a culture erased by cataclysm and time, yet immortalized in the silent stone that gazes eternally toward the east. The mysterious builders, who came before the Egyptians. Archaeologists have traditionally credited the Sphinx to Pharaoh Khafra, circa 2558 to 2532 BC, the builder of the second pyramid at Giza. This theory largely rests on proximity. The Sphinx sits near Khafra's pyramid, and on the discovery of a fragment of a statue bearing his face in the adjacent temple. But as scholars such as Dr. Robert Schoch and John Anthony West argued, the evidence doesn't hold up under scrutiny. The geological evidence of water erosion indicates the Sphinx could be thousands of years older than Khafra's reign. If true, that would mean the monument was carved not during Egypt's golden age, but during the tail end of the last ice age, a time when no known civilization existed in Egypt, according to mainstream archaeology. This single possibility opens a door into an entirely different version of human history, one where advanced knowledge existed long before the dawn of recorded time. Who were these mysterious builders? Were they early Egyptians, long forgotten? Or could they have been part of an older, global civilization, one that left its fingerprints across the ancient world, from the temples of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey to the megaliths of South America? Echoes of a forgotten science. Let's consider the precision of the Sphinx's construction. The monument is not merely a giant sculpture, it is a marvel of engineering. Its alignment with the rising sun on the spring and autumn equinoxes is too exact to be coincidence. Its body proportions, though eroded, demonstrate knowledge of geometry, balance, and architectural integration with the surrounding temples. These are not the random efforts of primitive stonemasons, they suggest mathematical and astronomical sophistication far beyond what early dynastic Egyptians possessed. Moreover, the surrounding Sphinx Temple and Valley Temple were built using massive limestone blocks, some weighing over 200 tons, cut and placed with a precision that modern engineers still find astounding. The technology required to carve and transport such stones has never been fully explained. Copper chisels, the supposed tools of the time, would have been useless against the hard limestone of the Sphinx enclosure. So how did they do it? This question has led to many theories, from lost ancient tools made of harder alloys, to vibration-based stone-cutting techniques, or even the controversial notion that ancient builders may have possessed technologies now lost to history. Whatever the truth, it's clear that something extraordinary happened on the Giza Plateau long before Egypt's known pharaohs began their reign. The legacy of the gods. Ancient Egyptian texts tell of a time before the pharaohs, a golden age ruled by the Shemsu-Hor, or followers of Horus. These semi-divine beings were said to have brought wisdom, architecture, and the arts of civilization to humanity. The Turin King list and other ancient papyri even mention rulers before the dynastic kings, mysterious beings who reigned for thousands of years. Mainstream historians treat these accounts as myth, but what if they're not? What if these so-called gods were actually remnants of a lost, advanced civilization, survivors of a cataclysm who preserved fragments of their knowledge in the structures they built? In this light, the Sphinx could be more than a monument, it could be a message, a relic of an ancient culture trying to leave behind proof of its existence before the world was reborn. The erosion marks on the Sphinx may not just signify time or weather, they might be the literal scars of a cataclysm that ended this earlier age, possibly the same event remembered in myths as the Great Flood. The flood that changed the world. Nearly every culture on Earth preserves a legend of a great flood. From the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh to the biblical story of Noah, to the flood myths of the Maya and the Hindus, the theme repeats with uncanny consistency: a world destroyed by water, and a few survivors tasked with rebuilding civilization. Modern geological evidence suggests a real event may underlie these myths. Around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, Earth's climate underwent dramatic upheaval. The end of the last ice age triggered massive flooding as glacier melted. Sea levels rose more than 300 feet, swallowing coastlines and ancient settlements. It is during this time that Dr. Shock places the construction of the Sphinx before the world-changing floods. If the Sphinx truly predates the deluge, then it may have been built by that lost civilization remembered in myth, a people who vanished when the world's geography and its memory were reshaped forever. Perhaps this is why the Egyptians themselves viewed the Sphinx as sacred and ancient even in their time. To them, it was not the work of their ancestors, but of the gods. The face of the Sphinx, a clue to its age. For decades, scholars have debated whether the face of the Sphinx represents Pharaoh Khafra. Yet when researchers compared the facial features of the Sphinx with surviving statues of Khafra, they found striking differences. The Sphinx's face is broader, its proportions more African or Nubian than typical of Khafra's depictions. Moreover, geological erosion suggests the head was recarved in antiquity. If the original face was damaged, perhaps by the elements or flooding, later rulers may have reshaped it to resemble themselves, effectively overwriting history. If that's true, then the original face might have been far older, perhaps even non-human, representing the lion-headed deity Sekhmet, or a symbolic guardian of cosmic power. The recarving could explain the head's disproportionate size compared to the body, as if the face was carved anew from an already eroded form. This would mean the body of the Sphinx is thousands of years older than its current face, and that the original monument may not have been a royal likeness at all, but a divine guardian watching over something hidden beneath the sands. The hidden chambers below. Beneath the Sphinx, ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed anomalies, chambers and tunnels that remain unexplored or sealed by Egyptian authorities. Some researchers, including the late Dr. Edgar Case's followers, believe these chambers hold records of a forgotten civilization, possibly the lost city of Atlantis. In 1993, seismic studies conducted by Dr. Thomas DeBecke and Dr. Shock detected cavities beneath the Sphinx's front paws and body, rectangular voids that appeared man-made. The Egyptian government, however, has restricted further excavation, citing preservation concerns. Could it be that the Sphinx guards something more than history, perhaps a vault of knowledge intentionally buried until humanity is ready to rediscover it? The ancient Egyptians themselves called the Sphinx Horemakhet, Horus in the horizon, a guardian of rebirth and transition. Maybe the monument was meant to survive destruction and deliver its message to a future world, ours. The architects of memory. When we look at the Sphinx today, half buried and weathered by time, we're not just seeing a sculpture, we're seeing the survivor of a lost epoch. Its creators built in stone so that their story could outlast water, fire, and forgetfulness. The monument might have been part of a larger complex, a message encoded in geometry and celestial alignments. Perhaps it was built not only to guard a tomb or a temple but to guard memory itself, the memory of a time when humans lived in harmony with the heavens, and when knowledge of the stars, the earth, and spiritual reality were one and the same. When the flood came, this civilization vanished, and Egypt rose centuries later from its ashes, inheriting fragments of its science, its architecture, and its myths. The Sphinx became their inheritance, a link to the gods, and a riddle no man could fully answer. The Great Sphinx of Giza does not stand alone in its mystery. Across the globe, other ancient structures share uncanny similarities, architectural styles, megalithic techniques, celestial alignments, and mythological themes that point toward a lost global civilization, one that may have existed long before the earliest dynasties of Egypt. In this part, we explore how the Sphinx connects to those other ancient monuments, from the pyramids of South America to the temples of Asia, and how together, they may tell the story of a forgotten chapter in human history. A global pattern in stone. If the Sphinx predates dynastic Egypt, then it belongs to a much older epoch, one that includes sites such as Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Baalbek in Lebanon, and Puma Punku in Bolivia. Each of these locations reveals an astonishing level of architectural sophistication that defies the timeline of human progress as accepted by modern archaeology. Göbekli Tepe, for example, was built around 9600 BC, long before agriculture or city life supposedly began. It features massive T-shaped pillars arranged in astronomical precision, carved with animals and symbols that suggest a profound knowledge of the cosmos. Similarly, the megalithic stones of Baalbek's trilithon weigh up to 1,200 tons, and their placement implies technology or methods beyond simple ropes and pulleys. When seen collectively, these sites seem to whisper the same message: someone, or something, knew more than we give them credit for. The Sphinx, weathered by ancient rains and facing the rising sun, fits perfectly into this larger picture. It may have been one of the first great markers of this lost global knowledge network. The celestial blueprint. What connects these ancient monuments is not just their size or age, but their alignment with the heavens. The Sphinx, as we've seen, faces directly east, aligned with the rising sun on the equinoxes. The pyramids of Giza are aligned with Orion's belt, mirroring the stars above. In South America, the pyramids of Teotihuacan mirror the same constellation. In Cambodia, the temples of Angkor Wat reflect the movement of Draco, the celestial serpent. Why would cultures separated by oceans and millennia construct their monuments in alignment with the stars, and the same stars at that? One theory suggests that these alignments were not coincidental, but intentional, part of a worldwide system of sacred geometry and astronomical communication. If a global civilization once existed, its builders might have encoded their wisdom into stone across the earth, leaving behind a celestial map for future generations to rediscover after their world fell. The Sphinx, oriented toward the sun, might have been the cornerstone of this cosmic network, the guardian of dawn, marking the beginning of a cycle both earthly and cosmic. The Sphinx and the Age of Leo. Dr. Robert Bauval and Graham Hancock proposed that the Sphinx's orientation and symbolism correspond not to the time of Khafra, but to around 10,500 BC, the dawn of the Age of Leo, when the constellation Leo rose directly behind the sun on the spring equinox. If true, this would mean the Sphinx, a lion-bodied monument facing the rising sun, was deliberately aligned to commemorate that celestial event. In other words, the Sphinx may not have been built during the 4th dynasty at all, but thousands of years earlier, by people who tracked the precession of the equinoxes, a complex astronomical phenomenon not officially recognized until thousands of years later. Such knowledge implies long-term observation of the heavens and an advanced understanding of time cycles. The builders of the Sphinx, it seems, were not primitive artisans, but astronomer-engineers preserving cosmic memory in stone. The Lost Mother Civilization Theory. The concept of a global civilization predating known history is not new. Ancient Greek philosophers like Plato wrote of Atlantis, a powerful, technologically advanced island that was destroyed in a single day and night of catastrophe. Other legends speak of Mu, Lemuria, or the land of Punt, lost homelands from which civilization spread after cataclysmic floods. Modern researchers have noticed striking cultural and architectural parallels among ancient peoples. Pyramidal structures in both Egypt and Mesoamerica. Flood myths shared by cultures worldwide. Advanced stonework appearing abruptly without a clear developmental lineage. Could all these traces stem from a single ancestral source, a civilization that once spanned continents, destroyed by an Ice Age cataclysm around 10,000 BC? If so, the Sphinx may not only represent Egypt's dawn, it could be a surviving fragment of that lost world, deliberately preserved by later civilizations who inherited its remnants. The sacred knowledge of the builders. Legends of the ancient world often mention as keepers of knowledge those who survived the flood and taught humanity to rebuild. The Egyptians called them the Shemsu-Hor, the Mesopotamians referred to Oans, a being who rose from the sea to instruct humanity in writing and science. In South America, the Incas spoke of Viracocha, a pale-skinned god who came after a great deluge and built temples before disappearing westward. The pattern is unmistakable. Each tradition remembers mysterious benefactors, teachers from a previous age who brought civilization back from the brink. If these stories refer to the same group of survivors, then the Sphinx might have been one of their first great post-cataclysmic works, a beacon of remembrance carved to withstand the next disaster. Its builders may have encoded messages not in language but in geometry, astronomy, and proportions, universal languages that could outlast any spoken tongue. Ancient technology and lost techniques. The level of precision in megalithic architecture found worldwide hints at techniques modern engineers still struggle to explain. Stones weighing hundreds of tons were cut, moved, and placed with microscopic precision, often without mortar, fitting together as if mold. At Giza, at Baalbek, at Puma Punku, and even beneath the temples of Japan's Yonaguni Monument, we see evidence of engineering far ahead of its supposed time. Was it possible that the same lost civilization developed a unified method of construction, utilizing knowledge of acoustics, resonance, and magnetism to manipulate stone? Experiments in modern times have shown that sound frequencies can indeed move small objects. If scaled up with lost techniques, could sound have been used to move massive stones? Could the Sphinx and its temples have been built using such methods, an ancient science now forgotten? Some researchers even point to subtle magnetic anomalies around megalithic sites, suggesting the builders understood not just physical, but energetic principles, harmonizing their monuments with Earth's natural frequencies. Traces of a hidden network. Satellite imagery and archaeological mapping have revealed ancient trade routes and alignments linking monuments across the world, a web of geometry connecting the Great Pyramid, Easter Island, Machu Picchu, Angkor Wat, and even Stonehenge. This world grid theory proposes that ancient builders intentionally placed their monuments on points of geophysical significance, nodes of energy on the planet's electromagnetic field. The Sphinx, placed at 30 degrees north latitude, may have been one of the prime nodes in this system, a spiritual anchor point designed to balance and stabilize Earth's energy flow. Whether one accepts this idea literally or symbolically, it suggests the builders were not only architects but geophysicists, blending science, spirituality, and astronomy into a unified worldview. Egypt's role as the heir of the ancients. If the Sphinx predates the pharaohs, then early Egypt was not its creator, but its inheritor. The first kings, rising centuries after the cataclysm, may have discovered the Sphinx already ancient, half buried in sand, and chosen to build their pyramids beside it to claim its legacy. This could explain why the earliest Egyptian architecture already shows signs of advanced skill, as if it did not evolve, but was inherited fully formed. The builders of the Step Pyramid, the temples of Abydos, and the Osirian may have been reconstructing, not inventing, guided by fragments of knowledge left behind from a forgotten epoch. Their myths of gods descending from the stars, of Zep Tepi, the first time, may refer not to celestial beings but to their lost ancestors, survivors of the flood who once ruled a unified, enlightened world. The return of the memory. Today, as technology allows us to peer beneath the sands, scan ancient structures, and date stones with increasing accuracy, the Sphinx is beginning to reveal its secrets. The more we learn, the more it seems that mainstream timelines fall short of explaining the data. If the erosion, astronomical alignments, and global parallels are all correct, then humanity's story is far older and far more complex than we have imagined. The Sphinx might not simply be a monument, It might be the first library, encoded in stone, left by a people who understood that knowledge must survive disaster. They carved their legacy where no flood could reach, into the bedrock itself. The Great Sphinx of Giza stands as a monument not only to human ingenuity but also to human denial. For centuries, scholars, archaeologists, and Egyptologists have debated its origins, yet, even as new evidence emerges suggesting that the Sphinx may be far older than officially believed, the establishment continues to resist re-evaluation. Why? What forces, academic, political, or ideological, have worked to suppress the full truth about this monument? In this part, we pull back the veil on the hidden struggle between discovery and dogma, and reveal how the story of the Sphinx may be the story of humanity's own fear of rewriting its past. The academic wall. Modern Egyptology was born in the 19th century, when explorers and scholars like Champollion and Petrie began systematically cataloguing the ruins of ancient Egypt. Their discoveries were revolutionary, but they also cemented a framework for interpreting history that remains largely unchanged to this day. This framework holds that Egyptian civilization began around 3100 BC with the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under Nama, Mens. Anything before that, especially evidence of large-scale architecture or advanced technology, simply doesn't fit. When Dr. Robert Schoch first presented his geological findings in the early 1990s, showing that the Sphinx had been eroded primarily by water, not wind and sand, it should have been a cause for excitement. Instead, it triggered outrage. Egypt's leading Egyptologist at the time, Dr. Zahi Hawass, publicly dismissed Schoch's work as nonsense, claiming that rain erosion was impossible and that the Sphinx must date to Khafra's reign. But Schoch's evidence was scientific, based on stratigraphy and rainfall patterns, not speculation. Why was it so quickly rejected? The answer lies not in geology, but in control of the narrative. If the Sphinx predates Egypt's known history, then Egyptology itself, as a field, must be rewritten. Entire careers, textbooks, and museum interpretations would collapse. The implications ripple outward, suggesting a lost epoch of human civilization, and perhaps the survival of knowledge from a time long before recorded history. For those invested in the traditional timeline, that's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. The gatekeepers of the past. Control over Egypt's ancient monuments is not just academic, it's political. The Egyptian government, through the Supreme Council of Antiquities, SCA, tightly regulates access to archaeological sites. Excavations require official permission, and even scientific studies are subject to approval. This centralization of power has often led to accusations of censorship and suppression. Researchers who challenge the official timeline, whether suggesting pre-dynastic origins, alternative builders, or hidden chambers, often find themselves denied permits, discredited, or even banned from sites. In the 1990s, when researchers John Anthony West and Dr. Schoch requested permission to conduct further tests beneath the Sphinx, the SCA denied them. Later, when radar surveys revealed cavities under the monument, requests to excavate were again refused. The official explanation was site preservation. Critics saw something different: information control. Even today, despite advances in ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR, and seismic imaging, much of what lies beneath the Sphinx remains officially unexplored or unacknowledged. What could possibly justify such secrecy over one of humanity's greatest monuments? The hidden chambers. In 1993, seismic surveys conducted by a team under Dr. Thomas DeBecke and Dr. Robert Schoch revealed several anomalies beneath the Sphinx enclosure, cavities that appeared rectangular and symmetrical, suggesting artificial construction. One of these voids lay directly beneath the Sphinx's front paws. Independent researcher Edgar Casey, decades earlier, had claimed through trance readings that a hall of records lay buried beneath the Sphinx, a library containing the wisdom of Atlantis, sealed away before a great cataclysm. Most scholars dismissed Casey's claims as mystical fantasy. But when the seismic data seemed to confirm the existence of chambers in the exact location he described, the story took an unexpected turn. The Egyptian authorities, however, shut down all excavations related to the anomaly. The official reason? Conservation. But the timing was suspicious, and since then, no significant excavation has been permitted in that region. To this day, the full contents of the subterranean area beneath the Sphinx remain a mystery. What if the Hall of Records was not a library of scrolls, but something symbolic, a repository of knowledge preserved through geometry, resonance, and encoded design? Could the monument itself be the message, rather than the container? The archaeological blacklist. Those who challenge orthodoxy often pay a heavy price. Dr. Schock's findings were dismissed, and John Anthony West was marginalized in professional circles. Graham Hancock, whose books on lost civilizations reached millions, was labeled a pseudo-archaeologist by mainstream scholars, despite his meticulous use of evidence. Yet, time and again, their theories have gained credibility as new discoveries emerge. The site of Göbekli Tepe, for example, dating to around 9600 BC, proved that advanced architecture existed millennia before the Sphinx was supposedly built, exactly as alternative researchers had argued for decades. Still, the establishment rarely admits fault. The pattern repeats: deny, ridicule, then quietly absorb. It's not that evidence is lacking, it's that admitting it would dismantle the entire academic edifice built upon the current timeline. The religious factor. There's another reason why rewriting history is resisted: theology. If humanity was building advanced monuments 12,000 years ago, it means civilization did not emerge suddenly, but re-emerged, possibly after a global cataclysm. That aligns with ancient flood myths but contradicts literal interpretations of religious chronologies that place the origin of humankind only a few thousand years ago. Throughout history, religious institutions have influenced archaeology, often discouraging discoveries that conflict with scriptural timelines. In this sense, acknowledging the true age of the Sphinx doesn't just threaten science, it threatens theology, calling into question long-held assumptions about the origins of humankind, divine revelation, and the story of creation itself. The media and misdirection. When the public's curiosity grows too loud to ignore, authorities often respond not with information but with distraction. In 1996, media outlets reported that a hidden chamber had been found under the Sphinx, sparking worldwide fascination. But within weeks, official statements downplayed the discovery, calling the voids natural fissures. Later, when new radar scans confirmed man-made cavities, the news barely made headlines. Instead, documentaries funded by official channels continued to promote the same old story: the Sphinx was built by Khafra around 2500 BC. Why keep repeating a theory that fails to explain so much evidence? Because repetition shapes belief. If the same message is repeated often enough, it becomes fact by default. Meanwhile, any challenge to it is labeled conspiracy, pseudo-history, or fantasy. Yet history is full of examples where truth began as heresy. The fear of the past. If the Sphinx truly predates recorded history, then we must ask, who were its builders? And if they possess knowledge far beyond their supposed time, what happened to them? This question terrifies both academia and religion because it implies the existence of a forgotten chapter of humanity, one that challenges everything we believe about progress. To admit that such a civilization once existed means accepting that human knowledge can be lost, and that our modern age, with all its technology, might not be the pinnacle of progress, but merely another cycle in a much older story. Perhaps that is why the truth about the Sphinx remains suppressed. It's not just about protecting reputations or institutions, it's about protecting the illusion of certainty. The guardians of secrecy. Throughout history, secret societies have claimed to guard ancient knowledge passed down from pre-dynastic times, from the mystery schools of Egypt to the Freemasons and Rosicrucians of later centuries. Many of their symbols, the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, the sun rising in the east, echo the imagery of the Sphinx itself. Were these groups preserving fragments of the same wisdom encoded into the monument? Or were they using the Sphinx's symbolism as a vessel for esoteric truths? It's possible that the suppression of the Sphinx's true age is part of a long tradition of secrecy, one meant not to deceive the public, but to protect knowledge too powerful, too paradigm-shifting, for mass understanding. Perhaps those who truly know what the Sphinx represents are not archaeologists at all, but initiates, the unseen custodians of the world's hidden history. Hidden beneath the sands of Egypt, scattered across deserts and buried under layers of historical revision, lie fragments of a story that refuses to stay silent. The Great Sphinx of Giza is often treated as a lone sentinel, an isolated monument of ancient Egyptian glory. But what if it's not alone? What if it is merely the most visible remnant of a civilization that existed long before dynastic Egypt, long before the pharaohs, and perhaps before recorded history itself? In this part, we delve into the forbidden evidence, the anomalies, artifacts, and ruins that archaeologists, historians, and researchers have either ignored, dismissed, or labeled out of place. These artifacts, found not only in Egypt but across the globe, whisper a consistent message: humanity's timeline may not begin where we've been taught. The Abydos mystery, the helicopter's hieroglyphs. Let's begin with one of the most controversial pieces of evidence, the carvings found in the Temple of Seti I at Abydos. To the naked eye, the hieroglyphs carved into the ceiling of one chamber appear to depict modern technology, what look unmistakably like a helicopter, a submarine, and even a jet. Mainstream Egyptologists claim this is a mere case of palimpsest, where earlier carvings were plastered over and later recarved, creating accidental shapes that coincidentally resemble modern machines. But those who have studied the carvings in detail argue that the precision, scale, and clarity of these depictions are too deliberate to be dismissed as coincidence. If these glyphs truly show advanced machines, it raises two haunting possibilities: either ancient Egyptians witnessed such technology firsthand, or they were recording memories of an older civilization that possessed it. And that brings us back to the Sphinx. If its erosion patterns show it's thousands of years older than Egypt's known history, perhaps these machines and flying crafts weren't mythic after all. Perhaps they were relics of the world that built the Sphinx. The hidden tunnels beneath Giza. In 1978, Egyptian authorities quietly halted a major excavation under the Giza Plateau after teams using ground-penetrating radar discovered vast cavities beneath the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid. While the official statement claimed natural fissures, several independent researchers, including the late Dr. Edgar Case's Foundation team, believe these cavities form part of a massive underground complex. Ancient texts refer to a hall of records, a chamber said to contain the written history of humanity's lost ages, predating the flood. According to legend, it was sealed by the survivors of Atlantis to preserve their knowledge for future generations. The most intriguing part? The Hall of Records was said to be hidden beneath the paw of the Sphinx. When new seismic data from the 1990s confirmed the existence of an anomaly precisely under the Sphinx's left paw, speculation reignited. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities has repeatedly denied requests for deeper excavation, citing structural preservation concerns, yet many suspect the truth is being deliberately withheld. If the chamber does exist, and if it contains what these legends claim, it could rewrite every chapter of human history. Out-of-place artifacts, the smoking guns. The Baghdad Battery. Thousands of miles from Egypt, in ancient Mesopotamia, archaeologists unearthed a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and iron rod, what scientists now call the Baghdad Battery. Tests reveal it could generate an electrical charge when filled with acidic liquid. What was such technology doing in the first millennium BC? More importantly, why do depictions in Egyptian temples seem to show bulb-like objects connected by wires, the so-called dendrolite? Some theorists believe both point to a shared technological legacy that once spanned multiple continents. The Saqqara bird. Discovered in an Egyptian tomb, this small wooden model resembles not a bird, but a modern glider. It has aerodynamic proportions, a fixed wing, and a vertical stabilizer, unlike any bird species known to science. Aeronautical engineers have confirmed that, with a tailplane added, it could achieve controlled flight. If this model predates known flight by thousands of years, who inspired its design? Did ancient people witness aircraft long before the Wright brothers, or were they recreating knowledge passed down from the builders of the Sphinx? The Piri Reis map. Drawn in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, this map includes an astonishingly accurate representation of the Antarctic coastline, beneath the ice. Modern surveys show Antarctica's subglacial outline wasn't known until the 20th century. How could a 16th century map depict it? Unless it was copied from older charts created by a civilization that had the technology to survey the Earth from above. Ancient precision, the impossible stonework. The Great Pyramid and the Sphinx aren't alone in their engineering mysteries. Across Egypt, Granite and diorite, materials harder than steel, were shaped with precision no primitive tools could achieve. Core drill marks on stone vases, saw cuts on statues, and polished surfaces smoother than modern machine finishes reveal the use of tools that should not have existed 4,000 years ago. Engineer Christopher Dunn, author of the Giza power plant, demonstrated that the ancient cutting methods bore hallmarks of ultrasonic drilling, a technology only recently developed in modern labs. His conclusion? The ancient builders were not primitive stonemasons. They were engineers. If true, then the Sphinx was likely not carved by farmers with copper chisels, but by a culture with lost scientific understanding, one possibly inherited from the survivors of an earlier cataclysm. The hidden hand of suppression. Throughout history, institutions have repeatedly censored discoveries that threaten the accepted narrative. From the Vatican archives to state-controlled archaeological departments, the pattern remains the same. Findings that fit neatly into the accepted timeline are published, while anomalies are quietly buried. In 1996, a team of geologists claimed to find human footprints fossilized alongside extinct animals in strata millions of years old, evidence suggesting modern humans walked the Earth far earlier than accepted. Within months, the site was closed to the public. The same fate met researchers who pushed the Sphinx's age back to 10,000 BCE. Their findings were met with ridicule, funding cuts, and career destruction. Why? Because acknowledging a civilization capable of engineering wonders before recorded history undermines the entire foundation of modern academia. It forces us to ask, who were these people? What happened to them? And what knowledge did they leave behind? The global echo, patterns across the world. In South America, the ruins of Pumapunku in Bolivia show megalithic blocks cut with laser-like precision. In Turkey, Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known temple, dates back to 12,000 years ago, aligning perfectly with the proposed water erosion age of the Sphinx. In Cambodia, the temples of Angkor Wat align with the stars of Draco, the same constellation pattern used at Giza. In Japan, the underwater Yonaguni monument shows signs of human construction, though it lies submerged beneath the ocean, perhaps a remnant of the same global flood that buried the Sphinx's civilization. The similarities are too numerous, too deliberate, and too mathematically aligned to dismiss as coincidence. These were not isolated cultures, they were fragments of a once unified world that understood the stars, geometry, and energy on a scale we are only beginning to rediscover. What the water damage really reveals. Returning to the Sphinx, its greatest secret is written not in hieroglyphs, but in erosion. The deep vertical fissures, the smoothed flanks, the rounded weathering patterns, they all speak the same truth. This monument was carved when the Giza Plateau was wet. The last time Egypt saw significant rainfall was over 10,000 years ago, marking the end of the Ice Age. The builders of the Sphinx must have lived during this era, an epoch when humanity was thought to be primitive, yet evidence suggests otherwise. If this is true, the Sphinx is the last surviving guardian of a forgotten age, the stone witness of an extinction-level event that erased not just lives, but knowledge. The Awakening. As modern technology advances, LiDAR scanning, satellite imaging, and deep Earth radar, more evidence continues to surface. Ancient cities buried beneath the Amazon. Submerged ruins off India's coast. Mysterious metallic spheres discovered deep underground. All of them point toward one haunting conclusion: a lost global civilization once thrived on Earth, advanced, connected, and deeply spiritual. The Sphinx is its final voice, eroded but not silenced, whispering a warning across millennia. Humanity has forgotten its first chapter. But perhaps the stones have not. For centuries, whispers of a global cataclysm have haunted nearly every ancient culture on Earth. From the biblical flood of Noah to the Sumerian tale of Utnapishtim, from the Mayan deluge myths to the Atlantean cataclysm described by Plato, one message echoes through them all: there was a time when the heavens opened, the seas rose, and an entire civilization, perhaps the first civilization, vanished almost overnight. When we look upon the Great Sphinx of Giza, its body eroded by torrential rain, its face defiant against the sands of time, we are not merely seeing the weathering of stone. We are seeing the scars of survival, the memory of a world washed away. The ancient cataclysm, more than a myth. For centuries, scholars dismissed flood legends as regional exaggerations. But geological evidence tells a different story. Around 10,800 BCE, the Earth entered a period of violent environmental upheaval known as the Younger Dryas event. Massive ice sheets that had covered much of North America and Europe began to melt rapidly. Ocean levels rose by more than 300 feet. Evidence from Greenland's ice cores reveals sudden spikes in temperature, followed by abrupt cooling, a pattern consistent with an external shock, such as a comet impact or series of cosmic explosions. This event wiped out the megafauna, mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and other Ice Age giants, and it also marked the disappearance of numerous prehistoric cultures. But among those who may have perished, one stands above them all: the civilization that built the Sphinx. If this ancient culture existed before the deluge, then the floods of the Younger Dryas weren't just a climatic event. They were the end of an age. The Great Sphinx as a survivor of the flood. Dr. Robert Schoch's geological studies revealed that the water erosion around the Sphinx is not superficial. The patterns cut deep into the limestone bedrock, suggesting centuries of heavy rainfall. Yet Egypt has not experienced such a climate since roughly 7,000 to 10,000 BCE, long before the rise of dynastic Egypt. This means that the Sphinx, and perhaps the pyramids nearby, were already ancient relics when pharaohs first ruled. They were not built by the Egyptians, they were inherited. The ancient texts of the Pyramid Age contain tantalizing hints of this truth. The Egyptians referred to the Sphinx as Hore-Makhet, Horus of the horizon. In their mythology, Horus is the son of Osiris, the resurrected god-king who ruled before the flood. Could this be an allegory for an earlier civilization, a pre-dynastic empire destroyed by a great deluge? If so, the Sphinx stands as both monument and memorial, carved to honor those who fell, and perhaps to warn those who would follow. Global echoes of the Great Deluge. Across the world, flood legends tell of gods or advanced beings warning humanity of an impending disaster. In each version, a small group survives, carrying knowledge to rebuild civilization. The Sumerians tell of Ziusudra, who was told by the god Enki to build a vessel and save life from the waters. The Greeks speak of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who repopulated the world after Zeus sent a flood to cleanse humanity. The Mayans described multiple worlds destroyed by water, fire, and darkness, each ending with a few chosen survivors. The Hindu Vedas recount the story of Manu, who was warned by a divine fish, an avatar of Vishnu, to prepare for the flood that would wipe away mankind's sins. Each culture, isolated by oceans and continents, shares the same narrative arc: coincidence or collective memory of a single, global event? If humanity's first great civilization truly fell to water, then its survivors may have scattered across the globe, to Egypt, Mesopotamia, South America, and beyond, sowing the seeds of the cultures we know today. The Lost Continent, Atlantis and the Shadow of Memory. Plato's account of Atlantis remains one of the most compelling in ancient literature. He wrote that the island empire lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the Strait of Gibraltar, and that it sank in a single day and night of misfortune. Atlantis, according to Plato, was highly advanced, a seafaring power with knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and energy. But it grew corrupt, waging war against the known world, until divine forces destroyed it. For centuries, scholars have treated Atlantis as allegory. But geological studies reveal that massive landmasses once existed on what is now the Atlantic seabed. Sonar mapping near the Azores shows vast plateau-like structures buried beneath silt, perhaps the last remnants of Plato's lost world. If Atlantis truly existed, and if it fell around 10,000 BCE, the same era as the Sphinx's water erosion, then we may be looking at two halves of the same story: Atlantis as the center of that ancient world, and Egypt as one of its colonies or survivors. The evidence of the sea. In 2001, off the coast of India, marine archaeologists discovered submerged ruins in the Gulf of Cambay. Sonar scans revealed geometric structures stretching several kilometers, stone buildings, walls, and streets now lying 120 feet below sea level. Radiocarbon dating of recovered artifacts placed them at 9,000 years old. That predates the earliest known civilizations by millennia. Similar discoveries off Japan's Yonaguni Island show megalithic terraces and stairways carved into the seabed. Though skeptics claim they are natural formations, others see unmistakable patterns of intelligent design. If these ruins truly represent pre-flood cities, it would mean that the world before the cataclysm was globalized, interconnected in ways we are only beginning to grasp. The sudden silence in the fossil record. Archaeological strata around the world show an abrupt layer of mud, ash, and microspherules dating to roughly 12,000 years ago, a signature of rapid flooding and cosmic impact. In North America, this layer, known as the Younger Dryas boundary, contains melted glass, carbon soot, and platinum anomalies, consistent with an asteroid strike. Scientists believe fragments of a comet may have exploded in the atmosphere, triggering fires, flooding, and a sudden freeze. Within a short geological window, entire species disappeared: mammoths, mastodons, and giant ground sloths. But what if human civilizations vanished, too? The absence of their remains doesn't prove they never existed. Catastrophic floods could easily bury cities under hundreds of feet of sediment or erase them beneath rising seas, just as we've seen off India and Japan. The knowledge that survived. After the deluge, survivors would have emerged into a shattered world, coastlines redrawn, climates altered, populations decimated. Those who possessed fragments of ancient knowledge became legends, the culture bringers. In Egypt, these were the Shemsu-Hor, the followers of Horus, who rebuilt after the Great Flood. In Sumer, they were the Anunnaki, who descended from the heavens. In Mesoamerica, the Viracochas were described as tall, pale, bearded beings who brought agriculture and architecture. Each story describes advanced teachers appearing after disaster, bearing wisdom from a lost age. Could these have been the descendants or emissaries of the civilization that built the Sphinx? The Sphinx as a warning. If the Sphinx was carved by pre-dynastic survivors of a global flood, then it may serve as more than a monument, it may be a warning. Its alignment with the constellation Leo suggests it was meant to mark a specific era in the sky, possibly to track cycles of catastrophe. Ancient astronomers believed the Earth experienced periodic great years, where cosmic alignments triggered environmental upheaval. Some researchers suggest that the Sphinx, with its leonine body and human face, represents this duality, the beast and the mind, nature and consciousness, in balance. Its gaze toward the east may have been symbolic, a call to remember, to look to the rising sun, the rebirth of civilization after destruction. The silence of the academics. Despite mounting geological, astronomical, and archaeological clues, mainstream academia remains silent. To admit that the Sphinx predates dynastic Egypt, or that global civilizations existed before the flood, would upend textbooks, challenge religious timelines, and threaten institutional authority. Yet silence cannot bury truth forever. As new satellite technologies reveal structures beneath the Sahara, as climate shifts expose ruins once hidden under ice and ocean, the story grows clearer: our ancestors were not primitive. They were survivors of a world-ending cataclysm, and the Sphinx is their final message to us. The legacy of a lost age. The Great Sphinx stands half-buried not by accident, but by destiny, a symbol of memory half-forgotten. Its eroded body, its mysterious face, and the geological scars of rain tell a story older than Egypt, older than the flood, perhaps older than humanity as we know it. If the flood truly erased the first age of man, then we are the inheritors of a broken history, one written in stone, buried in sand, and drowned in salt water. The question is no longer whether the flood happened. The question is, what did it take from us? For centuries, humanity has gazed upon the Great Sphinx and the Giza pyramids with awe, reverence, and confusion. These monuments defy simple explanation. They are not just artistic expressions of devotion or power, they are feats of engineering and geometry so precise that even our modern machines struggle to replicate them. But what if their purpose was not ceremonial at all? What if the Sphinx and the monuments surrounding it once functioned as part of an ancient scientific network, a technology that harnessed energy, sound, and resonance in ways we have only begun to rediscover? As we explore this possibility, we step beyond archaeology and into a realm where stone becomes circuitry, vibration becomes power, and the Sphinx may not merely guard the secrets of ancient Egypt, it may be one of them. The geometry of power. The Giza Plateau is more than a collection of ancient ruins, it is a machine carved from the earth itself. Every structure aligns with astonishing precision to the cardinal points, north, south, east, and west. The Great Pyramid, for example, is aligned true north to within 1/20th of a degree, accuracy that wasn't achieved again until the invention of modern surveying equipment. But alignment isn't the only mystery. The three pyramids mirror the layout of Orion's belt, a celestial signature found echoed in monuments across the world, from Teotihuacan in Mexico to Angkor Wat in Cambodia. This recurring geometry implies a unified understanding of cosmic energy, that the ancients built their monuments not just for the gods, but with the universe itself. And the Sphinx? It stands at the head of this cosmic layout, oriented perfectly toward the east, the point where the sun rises during the spring equinox. Ancient texts called this moment the rebirth of Ra, the dawn of new ages. Was the Sphinx designed to capture or channel solar energy? Sound and stone, the forgotten technology of resonance. In recent decades, physicists and engineers have begun to explore the acoustic properties of ancient monuments. Studies conducted inside the Great Pyramid's King's Chamber revealed that the chamber resonates at a frequency of 432 Hz, the same frequency that some claim is connected to natural harmony and the vibration of the Earth itself. When tones are played within the chamber, the entire room begins to vibrate as though it were a tuning fork. This discovery led some researchers, such as Christopher Dunn, to theorize that the pyramids and surrounding structures functioned as resonance devices. They may have amplified vibrations, either acoustic or electromagnetic, converting them into usable energy. Could the Sphinx have served as a receiver or amplifier in this system? Consider its placement, a colossal structure carved directly into the bedrock, lying at the center of a complex network of subterranean chambers and shafts. When sound or vibration travels through the Earth, the Sphinx's mass would naturally amplify it. Its body may have been designed to channel frequencies from deep within the planet, a kind of ancient sonic technology that interacted with the Earth's natural energy fields. The hidden chambers beneath. In 1991, seismic surveys conducted by Dr. Thomas DeBecke and Dr. Robert Schock detected rectangular cavities directly beneath the Sphinx's pores, one of them approximately 25 feet by 40 feet in size. While Egyptian authorities downplayed the discovery, later studies confirmed the existence of subsurface anomalies stretching beneath the Sphinx enclosure toward the Great Pyramid. Could these chambers be part of a long-forgotten power system, or perhaps an ancient library of knowledge? Edgar Case's readings from the early 20th century, though controversial, described a hall of records hidden beneath the Sphinx, containing the history and science of the civilization that came before the flood. He claimed it would be revealed when mankind is ready to understand. For decades, excavations have been denied. But as technology like ground-penetrating radar improves, the truth beneath the Sphinx may soon be impossible to conceal. Vibrations and healing, the spiritual science. In many ancient cultures, sound was not merely art, it was medicine. From Tibetan singing bowls to the chanting of priests, from the didgeridoos of Australia to the hymns of Egypt, vibration was believed to harmonize body, mind, and spirit. Ancient Egyptian temples were built to resonate with specific tones. The Temple of Atha at Dendra, where the famous light bulb carvings are found, contains chambers that echo with precise acoustics when hymns are sung. The ancients may have understood that sound, when used correctly, could alter consciousness or even manipulate matter. Modern experiments support this idea. Cymatics, the study of sound waves forming geometric patterns in particles, shows how vibration can shape physical reality. At certain frequencies, sand and water naturally arrange themselves into sacred geometries, the same patterns found in Egyptian art and architecture. Is it possible the builders of the Sphinx knew this secret, that vibration was the key to life, healing, and energy itself? The piezoelectric mystery of the Giza Plateau. Quartz, one of the most abundant minerals in the Giza bedrock, has a remarkable property. When compressed, it generates electricity. This is called the piezoelectric effect. Many of the pyramid's limestone blocks and granite components are rich in quartz. When pressure, heat, or vibration acts upon them, they produce an electrical charge. If the ancient builders understood this, the Sphinx and its surrounding monuments may have been designed to harness the Earth's natural stress energy, converting it into power. Imagine the Giza Plateau as a massive resonating circuit. The pyramids capturing cosmic and solar energy. The Sphinx grounding it through the Earth. The chambers beneath acting as amplifiers or capacitors. Such a system could have provided limitless energy, not electrical as we know it, but perhaps vibrational, capable of sustaining technologies, illumination, or even healing fields. The lost science of Ma'at. The ancient Egyptians spoke of Ma'at, the principle of balance, order, and harmony governing the universe. But Ma'at was not only a moral code, it may have also been a scientific law. To live according to Ma'at was to live in resonance with the cosmos, to understand that everything, from the movement of stars to the beating of the human heart, vibrates with the same divine rhythm. The Sphinx, oriented toward the rising sun, may have been both a spiritual and technological device, symbolizing the eternal alignment between earth and the heavens, humanity and divinity, vibration and creation. When civilization strayed from this harmony, chaos, or Isfet, emerged. Some ancient texts suggest that the Great Flood itself was not merely punishment, but the natural consequence of humanity falling out of resonance with Ma'at. If the Sphinx was built by those who once mastered this balance, then it may embody not just stone and science, but a philosophy of energy that bound both physical and spiritual worlds. The energy grid theory. In recent years, researchers have mapped ancient sites around the globe and discovered that many lie along invisible lines, or ley lines, forming a geometric energy grid that covers the Earth. Giza occupies one of these intersections, as do Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and Easter Island. Coincidence? Or deliberate placement? If the ancients built their monuments along this planetary network, they may have understood how to tap into the Earth's natural energy fields. The Sphinx, sitting atop one of these nodal points, could have acted as both a receiver and transmitter, maintaining the energetic equilibrium of an entire region. When the global cataclysm struck, this grid may have collapsed, cutting humanity off from its once universal power source. Modern echoes of ancient power. In the 21st century, scientists are rediscovering what the ancients may have known all along. Quantum physics reveals that the universe is not made of matter, but of vibration, waves of energy that form everything we see. Tesla himself believed that frequency and resonance were the keys to unlimited energy. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, he said, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Perhaps the Sphinx's builders understood this principle thousands of years earlier. Their monuments weren't tombs or temples, they were harmonic devices designed to synchronize human consciousness with the frequencies of the cosmos. The silence before revelation. The deeper we dig, both literally and metaphorically, the clearer the pattern becomes. The Sphinx is not an isolated enigma but a surviving node in a once global energy system. Its erosion tells of water, its geometry tells of stars, and its placement tells of power. It bridges the material and the divine, the physical and the energetic. And yet, despite all this, official recognition remains absent. Excavation requests are denied, data is withheld, and independent researchers are dismissed as heretics of science. But truth has a frequency of its own. And no matter how deeply buried, resonance finds a way to rise. The sleeping giant. The Sphinx has watched over the desert for millennia, half buried, half awake. It has survived floods, wars, and centuries of silence. But what if its time of silence is ending? As Earth undergoes magnetic shifts, as consciousness expands, as forgotten knowledge resurfaces, the Sphinx seems to stir once more, as if waiting for humanity to remember what it once knew, that we are not separate from the Earth, but instruments within its symphony. The Sphinx's eyes, eroded yet eternal, may soon open again, not physically, but through our awakening understanding. It was never merely a statue. It was a key. A reminder. A monument built not just to the past, but for the future. As the final rays of the sun fade behind the Great Pyramid, the Great Sphinx sits in silence, her shadow long and patient upon the sands. For thousands of years she has watched civilizations rise and fall, dynasties flourish and vanish, and empires that once dreamed of immortality dissolve into dust. Yet she remains, half buried and half revealed, an eternal riddle carved in stone. This last part of our journey into the Sphinx's mystery is not merely about her physical form or even her origins. It is about what she represents, the bridge between forgotten epochs and our modern world, between the divine and the human, between memory and amnesia. To understand the Sphinx is to confront a truth about ourselves, that we have forgotten far more than we remember. The awakening of ancient memory. Every age has its seekers, those who refuse to accept the official story and sense that something deeper lies beneath. For centuries, the Sphinx was dismissed as an odd monument built during the reign of Pharaoh Khafra around 2500 BC. But then came whispers, discoveries, and scientific evidence that began to unravel that narrative. Water erosion that speaks of rains millennia older than Khafra's Egypt. Geological formation suggesting a monument built when the Sahara was still green. Alignments that connected with celestial constellations marking epochs tens of thousands of years apart. If these findings are true, the Sphinx is not merely the guardian of ancient Egypt, she is the last witness of a lost world. It is not impossible to imagine that she once stood amid vast plains, surrounded by temples, cities, and thriving civilizations that predated the pharaohs. A world where human beings had knowledge of the stars, mathematics, and construction techniques so advanced that their descendants could only imitate fragments of it. In the mythic language of ancient texts, from the Egyptian Zep Tepi, the first time, to Sumerian accounts of gods descending from the heavens, there echoes a single theme, that civilization began suddenly, as if inherited rather than invented. The Sphinx, weathered but unbroken, may be the last surviving relic of that inheritance. Symbols of a forgotten science. If we view the Sphinx not as an isolated monument but as a repository of encoded knowledge, its meaning deepens. Her leonine body, symbol of earthly power and animal strength, fused with a human head, symbol of divine consciousness, embodies the unification of heaven and earth, spirit and matter. Many esoteric traditions, from Hermeticism to Kabbalah, echo this duality. The Sphinx may represent the ancient synthesis of knowledge, geometry, astronomy, and spiritual wisdom once woven into a single science. Consider her orientation, facing due east, aligned with the rising sun on the equinox. This is not coincidence. The ancients were obsessed with cosmic timing, with the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis that causes the stars to shift position over millennia. When we trace this celestial clock backward, the Sphinx's gaze aligns not with Leo in our modern age, but around 10,500 BC, the age of Leo. That date reappears like a haunting refrain, in the geological evidence of the Sphinx's water erosion, in the rising of Orion's belt over Giza's horizon, and in the myths of global cataclysm that marked the end of the last ice age. If true, then the builders of the Sphinx were not primitive stonemasons under a desert sun, they were the inheritors of a global knowledge system that encoded astronomy, spirituality, and cosmic cycles into stone. Guardians of the lost world. In every major civilization, there exists a myth of a guardian, a figure who protects sacred knowledge from destruction until humanity is ready to receive it again. The Greeks called them daemons, the Persians tahuras, and the Egyptians depicted them as sphinxes, griffins, and winged beings. The Great Sphinx may not simply be a statue. She may be a message left in plain sight, a guardian preserving the memory of a world erased by cataclysm. What cataclysm? The geological record points to a sudden, dramatic change around 12,000 years ago, the end of the Younger Dryas, a period of abrupt global warming likely triggered by a comet or asteroid impact. Ice sheets melted, oceans rose, and coastlines disappeared. Entire ecosystems and civilizations may have been wiped from history. Perhaps the Sphinx was built before that flood, and the pyramids, constructed later, were attempts by later dynasties to imitate or preserve what they could of the lost knowledge. Even the word sphinx may hold a hidden meaning. Derived from the Greek sphingein, meaning to bind or squeeze, it could symbolize the binding of secrets, the compression of wisdom into allegory, symbol, and riddle. The language of stone. Ancient builders did not leave written records in ink or papyrus that could burn or rot away. They wrote in stone, using geometry, scale, and alignment as their language. The Great Pyramid's precise measurements encode the dimensions of the Earth, the ratios of pi and phi, and even the length of the solar year. The Sphinx's placement, scale, and gaze are no less deliberate. It is a cosmic marker, a stone archive that speaks to those who understand the language of proportion and the movement of the heavens. Could it be that what we call myth was once a form of encrypted history? That gods, floods, and cycles of destruction were symbolic retellings of real events, transcribed into allegory to survive the ravages of time? If so, then the Sphinx and her surrounding monuments are not merely archaeological artifacts. They are fragments of a lost codex, a universal record of humanity's forgotten dawn. The resistance to truth. Why, then, does mainstream academia resist these ideas so fiercely? The answer lies not only in evidence, but in paradigm. Accepting that the Sphinx predates Egypt by thousands of years would force the rewriting of human history as we know it. It would collapse the timeline upon which every civilization has been neatly placed, and with it, the notion that progress moves in a simple, linear fashion from primitive to advanced. Such an admission would suggest that humanity is not the pinnacle of evolution, but a species suffering from cultural amnesia, one that rose to great heights, fell into darkness, and is now struggling to remember. For centuries, alternative researchers, from Schwaller de Lubicz and John Anthony West to Graham Hancock and Robert Schoch, have faced ridicule for challenging orthodoxy. Yet, as more data emerges, their arguments gain weight. Satellite imaging, deep ground radar, and 3D geological scans are revealing structures buried beneath the Giza plateau that may predate the known dynasties. The resistance persists not because the evidence is lacking, but because acknowledging it would overturn the very foundations of modern understanding. The spiritual implication. If the Sphinx truly connects to an earlier age, one that knew the heavens intimately and built in harmony with them, then her purpose was not just material or ceremonial. It was spiritual. She faces the rising sun, the eternal symbol of resurrection and renewal, reminding all who see her that life, like civilization, moves in cycles. The ancients understood this deeply. They believed time was not a straight line but a great wheel, that zodiacal ages, each lasting about 2,160 years, turning endlessly through the cosmos. In this view, the Sphinx is a symbol of rebirth, marking the dawn of one great cycle and the promise of another. Her silence is not emptiness, it is patience. She waits for humanity to remember. Perhaps that time is now. Rediscovering the builders. As technology advances, humanity is beginning to see what was once invisible. LiDAR scans in Egypt, South America, and Asia are revealing ancient structures hidden beneath sand and jungle, cities so vast that they defy our assumptions of what early humans were capable of. The Sphinx may belong to this same lost epoch, a global civilization connected not by empire, but by knowledge. The identical use of megalithic architecture, astronomical alignment, and sacred geometry across continents is no coincidence. From the pyramids of Egypt to those of Mexico, from Göbekli Tepe to Angkor Wat, the same blueprint appears again and again, as if echoing from a single source. Whoever the builders were, they understood that true power lies not in conquest, but in harmony with cosmic law. Their monuments were not meant to glorify rulers, but to align the human soul with the divine order of creation. The Sphinx speaks, through us. The Sphinx has no voice, but her message resounds through time. It is we who must learn to listen. Her eroded face tells of storms, floods, and countless attempts to bury her truth beneath layers of sand and denial. Yet she endures, as if carved to defy time itself. Perhaps the greatest secret of the Sphinx is not that she hides a lost civilization, but that she invites us to rediscover our own. The real mystery lies not beneath her paws, but within the human spirit, the part of us that hungers for truth, that looks at the stars and remembers we once understood them. She is a mirror, reflecting not only what was, but what could be again, if we awaken. The return of the first time. As night descends over Giza, the Sphinx's silhouette merges with the horizon, her gaze fixed eternally eastward toward the rebirth of the sun. Perhaps the ancients knew that one day humanity would once again awaken to the knowledge it lost. Perhaps that is why they built monuments that would outlast memory, outlast language, outlast even their own civilization. The Sphinx, the Great Pyramid, the entire plateau, they are not tombs. They are time capsules, messages left for the future, saying, remember who you are. The water erosion that scars her body may not merely mark age, it may mark survival. A sign that she lived through the deluge that ended one world and began another. And now, as we stand at the dawn of a new age, an age of rediscovery, the Sphinx's ancient riddle is being solved not by words, but by awakening consciousness. Her silence, once mistaken for mystery, is now heard as wisdom. The Sphinx has waited for millennia to be understood. Perhaps, finally, the world is ready to listen. The historical blackout, how 2 centuries vanished from our past. History, as we know it, is supposed to be a linear story. It begins somewhere in the dim past, in the fires of prehistory, and marches steadily forward through invention, conquest, art, and empire to the modern day. Every date, every event, every ruler is said to fit neatly on a timeline. But what if it doesn't? What if the calendar we use to understand our world is wrong, not by a few years, but by 2 entire centuries? What if the story of human civilization has been quietly edited, rewritten, restructured, and manipulated so that we live inside an illusion of continuity that never really existed? This is the story of what some historians and researchers call the phantom time hypothesis, the idea that roughly 200 to 300 years of history were fabricated, inserted into our timeline during the early Middle Ages. According to this theory, entire centuries, including parts of the so-called Dark Ages, may have never happened at all. The implications are staggering. If true, the medieval kings we read about, the battles we commemorate, and even the year we believe we live in, could all be based on a lie. A world built on a calendar. Our entire understanding of time and history rests on the calendar, a system of counting years invented by men, maintained by empires, and enforced by the church. The calendar gives us the illusion of precision: 2025, 1492, 1066, numbers that seem to anchor our past in certainty. But the truth is, those numbers are far from certain. The system we use today, the Gregorian calendar, was introduced by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, replacing the older Julian calendar established by Julius Caesar in 45 BC. The Gregorian reform corrected inaccuracies caused by the slight misalignment between calendar time and solar time. But to make this correction, the Pope simply skipped 10 days in October 1582,